You are now listening to the Minority Trailblazer podcast. Let the story begin.
One time for the lovers, 2 times for the ladies, 3 times for the brothers, 4 times for the babies. Do you love her? 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 1 time for the lovers, 2 times for the ladies, 3 times for the brothers, 4 times for the babies. Do you love her? 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 Brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. Brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. She my brown skin, love her brown skin, love her brown. She my brown skin, love her brown skin. Hold me down.
Welcome to the Minority Trailblazer podcast, and I'm your host, Greg E. Hill, the culture change agent. I'm excited. I'm pumped up to be here today. It's 7:30. I ain't even dropped the podcast yet because I've been recording podcasts all day. I got some amazing news. I don't care where you at. Get up and make some noise. I know that was mad corny, but I don't know. I felt in the spirit. I didn't need to say that. But yeah. I'm excited to be here. This podcast right here is going to be epic. I'm talking about jewels dropping. Drop. My homegirl, Kendra Barnes. Real estate beast. In the making, eight rental properties, multi-unit properties, 4 4plexes. I mean, she has been able to do a lot, and she work a full-time job. And most importantly, she helped others get grant funding, buy multi-unit properties, buy apartment buildings. And I mean, the stories that I heard on this podcast were mind-blowing in a practical way. So if you are a person that's looking to create other revenue, get into real estate in a non-schemy way, because there's a lot of people online giving a lot of real estate advice, and it's like, it's kind of can be overwhelming. But I mean, her story and how practical it was, I'm like, wow. And the resources that she provides on this podcast are mind-blowing. I know I'm hyping it up, but it's worthy to be hyped up because it's new information to me. I'm not familiar with a lot of this real estate stuff. Everybody says, you need to get into real estate, young man, get into real estate. Man, there's so much information on real estate, I don't get into real estate. So this is for the people like myself that have heard stuff about it and just want another perspective. Well, she here, and she does coaching, she does all that stuff, and I would definitely refer her. Like, there's people that I know, I rock with, I enjoy to do coaching and do all that stuff, and I wouldn't refer them because, I mean, not to say they're bad, but I don't know. But her, I mean, with her story and the stuff that she has been able to provide with her current clients and whatnot, like, I am telling you, if you are single, if you are in college, if you are married, and you are thinking about this real estate game, not flipping houses, I'm talking about the long haul, that reoccurring income. Listen to this podcast, share this podcast, get more people in. You need to contact her, hit her up, leave comments on this show on SoundCloud, hit her Instagram. This is about to be a phenomenal show, and I ain't never really hyped about a show like that, but it's just new information. So before I begin, I got a couple housekeeping things. One, for my people that's been holding me down for 5 episodes or more, I'm going to need your support over the next couple weeks. We are going to be rolling out some new stuff as far as content that can really help people be more attached to their goals, content that can help people in different spaces that maybe want to get into real estate or learn more about personal financing, or we just going to unite what we've been building for the last couple of years in the digital realm. And I'm going to need your support. So when we start putting stuff out there and on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, I'm going to need y'all support, sharing it, investing in it. It ain't going to be no $500 or whatever. No. It's going to be minimal. But I know I'm going to need your support. So I'm just going to put that out there. I got some really new heat coming. I got some free heat coming. Matter of fact, my mixtape. I know you're like, mixtape? I don't know what this boy talking about. Yeah, I got a motivational mixtape of some of my best recordings from 2015 to 2017. It's called Remember You're a Genius. It's a mixtape. The album's coming in 2019. It's a mixtape, 14 tracks. Some of my best work. I'm proud of it. proudly done by my brother Sidney Evans, executively produced and recorded by Sidney Evans, man. So, an engineer rather, by Sidney Evans, man. So shout out to him. And it should be out online tomorrow. I'll be hitting email boxes, letting people know. So just get excited and keep me in your prayers as we enter this new season of entrepreneurship, this new season of podcasting, this new season of adding value. Like, I'm really excited. I know I'm going to need your support. And if you can't support financially, I need your prayers, all right? Because it's about to be game changing. I know I'm big on, I'm big on rants. So I've always had the passion. I've always been able to add value. This is all God given them. This ain't me. But one thing that I always lack is structure. And that's what happens for a lot of like hustlepreneurs. You can hustle, you can sell books, you can grind, get these speaking gigs. But where's your foundation at? Like, you like the guys in the gym with the big upper body boy and the skinny legs. And this whole last year, I realized outside of some stuff I had to clean up character-wise, my legs was weak. But now I got this new game plan, and we about to change the culture. So before I begin I want to send a special shout out to every single person that shares episodes, that comments, that sends me messages. I read them, sends me emails. I read them, and it's encouraging, inspiring, and it keeps me like locked in, ready to go, and it helps my belief in myself. I'm gonna be real. I believe in myself, but I mean, I'm talking about 10s, 15, 20 messages a week of just encouraging stuff, comments, hundreds of comments, usually every show on a variety of different platforms. And I'm like, it's mind-boggling. And then luckily, the way I kind of situated that thing, I can grow by watching y'all and helping y'all grow. So it ain't like, watch G Hill rise to the top and we just gonna clap for him, support him from afar, like one of your homies that make it, or one of your people that like get a deal or become an actress in LA or become a model or go to the league. Nah. Like, I win if you win. So that's the exciting thing about this whole Minority Trailblazer experience and this journey. So I'm so blessed and so fortunate to have a quadrant of minority trailblazers that tune in, that share the podcast, that support the movements, that grab books, that bought merch, that kept me, 8 months off. We came back, and it was like I never left, boy. Y'all greeted the boy like I felt like I was home, man. Like, it's crazy. So I'm going to stop rapping, and I'm going to let y'all enjoy this amazing, legendary podcast. And let this not be the end of the conversation that you have with Kendra Barnes and some of the other guests I have on the show. No, take this thing offline, grow, utilize these resources, utilize these people, and let's grow and build together. And that's enough of me. Let's get into the show. On this show, we interview young, successful minorities in a variety of fields to educate, empower, and inspire our current and future generation of leaders. And as always, I got a show for you today. Most importantly, I'm excited because I got another Aggie on the line. Like, I know people that listen to this podcast, they're like, how come like 30% of all your guests have been Aggies? Well, shoot, Aggies do. Like, I can't make this stuff up. So don't hate. Just enjoy the show. It's going to be a phenomenal show. So let me read a little bit of her bio, and then we're going to jump right into it. So she's the economist by day, and I got that right. It's crazy. Side note, guys, I majored in economics, and I always have a problem or issue saying that. So bear with me as I get through this bio. So she's an economist by day and a real estate investor by night. She created the key resource to change the perception of what a real estate investor is supposed to look like. She owns and manages 4 properties, 8 rental units total, and she's on a mission to empower and educate millennials about building wealth through real estate investment. She's been featured in Forbes and Black Enterprise magazine. She was born in Virginia, raised in Texas, and went to undergraduate at the North Carolina A&T State University. And she also received her master's in agricultural economics from Purdue University before moving to Washington, D.C. And she currently now resides in Fort Worth, Texas. When she's not working or looking for her next investment, you can find her thrift shopping, baking some gluten-free goodies, or binge watching Netflix with her husband. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Kendra Barnes to the Minority Trailblazer podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you for the awesome introduction. I'm happy to be here in Aggie Pride.
Well, shoot, I'm happy to be here as well, and I'm excited to have you in the show because it's crazy that I've had this podcast for well over, golly, 3 years. 3 years, and actually I was recording since 2014, so really 4.5 years.
Wow.
And I've never had somebody that is focused in the real estate industry on the show.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm happy to chat about it because I love talking like all things real estate. So
Yeah, and I was excited too because before the show we got a chance to talk and wrap it up, and I was like, yo, a lot of times dealing with the real estate market, there's so much misinformation. There's so much stuff going on. You don't know who to trust or when to listen to, or does this apply to me or X, Y, and Z? So I'm really excited to get down to the nitty gritty of how you got into the real estate game, and the tips, tricks, wins, losses, all that great stuff. But before we do that, we always start the show off with a quote to kind of set the tone, set the standard. So Miss Barnes, take us away. Give us a quote or a mantra that you apply to your everyday life, and give us a story about how you do it.
So a mantra that I live by and that I always tell everyone, that I come across is you are worthy of wealth. And I think that's so important for us in the Black community because a lot of us grow up not knowing that, and it's not really reinforced. And the reason I say you are worthy of wealth is because I think a lot of people, when they look at real estate investment or becoming rich or becoming wealthy, they think you already have to be born into that, right? To achieve that wealth or those riches or what have you. But you really don't have to. You do not have to be a millionaire to invest in real estate or to invest in anything. Really, you can literally start with what you have right now and you're worthy of wealth. So it's just, I remind myself of that daily, and I want to remind, everyone of that as well.
Man, that speaks for itself, and I love that. But specifically, when's the last time that you had to remind yourself, like, hold up, Kendra, let's just take this mentality that I got right now and remind yourself of your greatness, and as far as being worthy of that wealth?
It's so interesting because, like, as far as real estate investment is concerned, I don't come from a family of real estate investors. And if you think about like how we are as millennials, we have a very different mindset from our parents and, our elders, right, in our family. And so a lot of times my family will see my husband and I buying properties. We're always looking for our next deal. We travel a lot because we live in Texas. Our rental properties are in DC and Maryland, which I'll explain more about how we got into it and all that stuff. But our rentals are in DC and Maryland. So we're back and forth. We'll hop on a plane in a heartbeat because our investments are halfway across the country. And a lot of times my family will say, like, y'all are doing too much. Why y'all always traveling? You're going to wear yourselves out. But what I keep trying to tell my family is, on the flip side, for my job, my day job, I'm an international economist, and I used to travel a lot for my job. I mean, they would fly me halfway across the world: China, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. I mean, I've been all those places. But when I was traveling to build up someone else's business, no one ever questioned it. But now that I'm traveling to build up my business, right, my investments, these properties, that's my retirement plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's my financial freedom plan. And everyone's like, why y'all doing so much? Like, y'all need to sit down. And I think that mentality is so skewed, but sometimes it does kind of make me stop and think, like, dang, am I doing too much? But I'm like, no, I'm worthy of wealth. Like, no one's telling Oprah to sit down. When she flies across the country building her business, so we just have to get that into our minds.
Heck yeah, that's deep. Especially like, yo, look, I'm going from Texas to DC, and back in the day, I was going literally across the country. Sri Lanka, you like, be safe, bring me back something. And now I'm going to DC often, and you like, slow down. What you mean? I ain't even got started yet.
Exactly.
So before we get into real estate and all that, can you share with our audience a little bit about your background and who you are prior to getting into real estate?
Yeah, so I went to A&T. A&T is actually the only school I applied for because I was like, if I don't get into A&T, I don't even know. Like, there was no plan B for me.
And how'd you hear about A&T from Virginia?
So actually, I'm a military brat. So I I grew up in Virginia, but I went to high school in Texas because my parents are in the military or were in the military. And I did this summer internship at A&T, and that was my first time ever hearing about A&T. I spent a summer there, and I was like, sign me up. I like, no, what other option is it? There was nothing else, like nothing to discuss, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, spent a summer in high school. I spent a summer at A&T for a internship, and I was sold. So went to A&T. They went to Purdue, started working in DC for the Department of Agriculture, met my husband in DC. We got married, bought a house, and we had never, ever, ever imagined investing in real estate. We thought that house we bought was going to be like the last house we ever bought. We're
And
like,
side note, quick question. Did you
Yeah.
have, what did your parents do? And did you have like siblings as well?
So no, I'm my only child. My parents were both in the Air Force. My
Okay.
mom actually just retired like a few months ago. So yeah,
So they're not
no
entrepreneurs.
siblings.
They're just more so career service to our countries.
Career, yeah, and I think the message that was enforced for me was go to college, get a good government job, and retire. And like that's it. That's the golden standard, you know. So
So which leads us to the second part of the show. So, all right, you're in DC. You found you a man, or your man found you, whichever way that works.
Right.
And then you got your house. You got a government job. Was he in the government as well?
yeah.
So y'all
yep.
both working for the government. So now y'all can just sit pretty and just retire, because you know you can't get fired from the government. So y'all right
Exactly.
here. So when in the world did it come onto your plate like, hold up, let me do this real estate thing?
So we bought the house, and we were living like so comfortable. We had those good government jobs. We still have them actually, but I'll get into that too. But we had those good government jobs, and we were just living, like traveling all the time. We were never thinking about the future, but only thinking about like, our present. We were living the life. And one day we played a board game called Cash Flow. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I know a couple of my fraternity brothers, they get up like once a month to do cash flow. I ain't gonna lie, I could play a little bit, but I can't just be playing cash flow all the time. But continue, not to spoil it, but it can get a lot. I'm like, yo, let's get into real life, man. But it's good though. It opens your eyes.
Yes, it can get kind of long. It's
Kind of
like,
long. You can start at like 5 and end at like 11.
Yes, yeah, you can. You definitely can. I love the game though because it really opens your eyes because it kind of mimics real life. And for anyone who has never played, the object of the game is to get out of the rat race of life. And the rat race can be living paycheck to paycheck, working a 9 to 5, being like burdened with debt. And to get out of the rat race, you have to make smart investments. And literally the only way to win the game is if you invest in real estate. That's it. Like you have to invest in real estate. And so we played that game and we literally walked away and we were like, wait a minute. Like, why did no one ever tell us to invest in real estate? Why have we never thought about this? Like, so the next day we started looking for our first rental. We played a game. Wow. And then literally went out and looked at properties.
That's crazy. So when all right, now you played the game. The next day, did you go on Google and start looking for properties? Did you like call a realtor? Like, what was that next step?
So we went on like a Redfin or Trulia, one of those. We were just like, okay, what can we do? We had no idea what the heck we were doing, but we did find a real estate agent and we started looking and stuff like that. And then we ended up buying a property, and that just kind of like we got addicted basically. But it all started with that game.
So what was the timeline between finishing up the game and then closing and buying your second property outside of your first home?
I think it probably was about 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was around 6 months. So now you got your second property. How was that process? The process pretty smooth? Because when I think about it, I'm like, okay, you financed, you put a down payment, you financed your first home, and then you get a second home. Because I'm not coming from a real estate background, right? So that's why in this whole interview, that's why I'm excited to have you on the show. I'm speaking from the audience that is not from a real estate background, and common myth would be like, hold up, you financed another home and y'all probably make decent money, but to finance another home would be kind of difficult. To be more questions asked, or was it a simple process?
So here's the thing. We learned so much, but we ended up, because remember I told you we were just living. We were not saving to buy a property, and you have to save. Like if you're buying rentals, you need to have savings, but we were not saving for that. So with it being such a huge leap, like a random leap, we ended up having to take money out of our retirement accounts to pay for the down payment for the property, which I will say it will not work for everyone, and it's not a smart financial decision for everyone. I would urge people to talk to their financial advisor to run the numbers. It worked beautifully for us because we have made more money on that money than it would have made in the retirement account, but that will not be the case for everyone, right? So that was our only option, because let me tell you the hard lesson on this one. So we bought a duplex, which is a 2-unit building, so it has 2 apartments, right? We bought the duplex, and the down payment was like $52,000. Like, who has $52,000? Like, who?
Just sitting around, like,
who has that, right? And so I remember the loan officer for the mortgage company, he was like, well, if you live in one unit and rent out the other, like if you take it as your primary residence and rent out the other unit, you don't have to put down as much. You only have to put down like $15,000. And I was like, oh no, I am not living in a 1-bedroom apartment. I got 2 degrees. I work hard every day. Like, we have a huge house. We had a garage. We had a movie theater room.
In DC?
In DC, we had a garage and a backyard.
What?
In DC.
Good God. I'm not even going to touch that right there. I don't know how you even work that out. I know government pay good, but good God, DC ain't cheap. But continue.
No, but so the house that we lived in, it was a short sale. And so if anyone's not familiar with short sales, it's like one step away from being a foreclosure, and you're able to get a house at a really great discount. We pretty much got the house for like half off, if you think about it, like a sale.
Like on clearance.
On clearance. And it's a really long process to do short sales, that the name is kind of deceiving.
It sounds like, okay, cool. Cause I mean, and that's one thing I know we're opening up a lot of doors. So like I said, you do this, you talk about this all the time, and you choose which door you want to go down to. But a lot of times when I hear real estate short sale or, you're buying stuff, it sounds like it's a pretty short process. It's to the point, but a lot of, from what I'm hearing, is not as simple, at least from that perspective.
No. So yeah, just to pause and kind of segue to short sales, it's really not short at all. The reason why it's called a short sale is because the bank is basically taking a loss. Like, if someone buys a house and they end up not being able to pay the payment anymore, and the bank decides to then just get rid of it at a discount, the bank is basically shorting themselves. That's why it's called a short sale. But it's a very long process for the person who's buying a short sale, because I mean, it's just so many different levels of approval, because the bank is losing money. It's just not, it takes a long time, but it can be worth it if you want a good deal. So, and to get some more context as well, how long after, when you graduated and got your master's degree, did you get the house? Was it a couple years working? Was it 4 or 5 years working? Was it a couple years after your marriage? Like, I just want to make sure the context is clear from your first situation. Oh, yeah. So I would say 3 years after my master's, we got our house. And then I think a year, maybe a little less than a year, we got the duplex. Okay.
So now, did you end up moving into the duplex? Like, I know I cut you off in that story, but now you can continue.
No, because I was not in a wealth building mindset. I said, I work hard every day. I got 2 degrees. I didn't go to Purdue and stress myself out and lose hair and all that kind of stuff for no reason. I'm not downsizing. I couldn't see the vision. And so we took the money out of our retirement account to have the larger down payment, and we stayed in the house that we lived in. So the term for buying a multi-unit property, living in one and renting out the other, is called house hacking. And it's a hack because you're able to get a rental property at, a lower down payment, and your tenant is basically paying your mortgage off. So you're living mortgage free. And I couldn't sacrifice at that point. I said, no, absolutely not.
So then, okay, what's next after there? So you ended up doing that. And I know you mentioned before that you learned a lot from what you learned was the sacrifice piece, or was it something else?
It was a sacrifice piece. Well, first, I didn't really know that you could do that. I didn't know that was a thing, that people would buy multi-units, live in one and rent out the other. I didn't know that was a way to get a lower down payment. I did not know house hacking was a thing that people use to get into real estate investing and there's so many more benefits to it as well. But But yeah, the sacrifice piece. So we did end up house hacking later on with another property, but for this one we didn't. So we had the duplex. We still lived in our house, and we rented out both units. We actually bought it, and it had a tenant in one unit. So there's a tenant in one unit. One was empty. We put the empty one on Airbnb, and we had the tenant upstairs.
Okay. So, and this was how many years ago?
This was in 2014, so I guess 4 years ago. Yeah.
All right. So 4 years ago, you bought your first property. It was a duplex. You used your savings. One question I didn't ask before then, up until that point, where were you getting your knowledge from as far as making these decisions?
We learned by doing. We had no mentors. And the thing is, like, the way social media is now, there's so many real estate investors out there like myself posting information, sharing, and there's courses and all these things you can take. We did not have any of that. We made some really hard, mistakes and learned some hard lessons, but we didn't get it from anywhere, basically.
And to walk us through as well, I think you said something deep. There's a lot of people out there putting a lot of information, right? There's a lot of real estate. I mean, there's some with thousands of followers, some with relatively few, but are posting great content. But how is us people? How are people like myself that are not in this space? And podcasting, I took courses, and speaking, I took courses and did webinars. But when there's so much content out there, and some people are telling different things. Some people are like, oh, do the short sale. Some people like use your retirement. Oh, some people like do this, do that. How do you kind of circumvent which one you should follow and all that? Is the best thing kind of what you did, doing it, but then maybe having a mentor, or is there a tried and true kind of method on seeing what really works and what's real?
I'm so glad you asked that, because while I think it's great that there's so much information out there, I think it's also harmful because people get in this like analysis paralysis where they don't know what to do. And every real estate investor thinks their way is the best.
Yeah.
But I am so different, where I'm like, there's really no wrong way. There's so many different ways to invest in real estate. You don't even have to be a landlord. Like, that's a whole other, thing we can get into. But like, there's so many ways to get in, so many ways to finance it, so many ways to get in the game. And the only wrong way for me is a way that's not going to make you any money. Like, make your money, make money, end of story. But I think people should first focus on what their goals are. Like, what are your money goals? And then pick a form of real estate investing based on that. And then just try to align yourself, like you said, with a mentor. Like I do coaching and stuff. But there may be someone who's interested in flipping. I don't do flips. So you need to find someone that aligns with what you want to do,
So let's take this interview two ways. One way, I'm interested in hearing about your complete real estate journey through. And then after that, I'm gonna give a couple scenarios about financial scenarios and maybe living scenarios. And then you can kind of give your impact on maybe the different actual ways that people could finance, etc. Cause I think that'd be very helpful for our audience. So now let's go back to your story, cause it's very intriguing. Okay. You got the duplex, right? You're Airbnb-ing it out. Do you still have that duplex? And after that, what was the next purchase outside of that?
So yes, we still have the duplex. Another lesson learned too for anyone listening is that duplex was occupied when we bought it. And so like, don't be afraid to buy occupied rental properties. It could be tricky because you could be buying someone else's problem, but it isn't always bad. So I just want to, throw that out there. So we bought that duplex. We had the house we lived in, and then we're like, dang, this money is good. Like, we need to do this again, right? So you get addicted. Once you start, it's crazy. So we found a fourplex apartment building with 4 units in it, and we decided, okay, now, my husband was always down for the sacrifice and the house hacking. But then I finally, got hip to it. And I said, okay, I'm ready to sacrifice and build wealth, because when you're building wealth from the ground up, like, you have to do things that other people wouldn't. Like, you can't just be doing regular stuff out here and hoping to get massive results. So I said, all right, I'm a house hack. We lived in 1 unit of the 4-unit building, rented out the other 3. So we had the duplex rented out. Then the house that we lived in, that big house with the garage and all that, we rented that out too. So then we had another rental.
So y'all didn't just say, oh, we're going to sell it. You said, nah, we're going to keep.
No. You don't sell in DC. Not yet.
So you was renting the big boy out too?
Yeah,
Oh, those
rented that
streams,
out
that
too.
don't must have been crazy. So, side note before, cause that sounds, I'm excited for you. I'm living like right now, I'm just seeing it in my head, and people that drive me, they probably seeing it in their head like, hold up, whoa, income stream right there, income stream right there, income stream right there. However, I will say, how was it actually dealing with tenants? Like, were you knocking on doors on the fifth, like, hey, how you doing, man? Let's get this PayPal, let's get this thing. Like, how was that? And then, it's being these your properties. I do want this to take you to the backside, because if something breaks or something goes wrong, don't you have to fix that as well?
Yeah, and so it's interesting because, well, for rent collection, we collect it online, so we don't really like chase down after people. But when we moved into our 4-unit building, I mean, if you think about it, we're literally living in the same building as our tenants, and so that's one of the sacrifices of house hacking. Yeah, you're living mortgage free, meaning yes, you have a mortgage, but your tenants are paying it, right? So you basically are living with no living expenses. That rent you were paying, mortgage, you're not paying it anymore. But the boundaries are different. Like now our tenants can knock on our door anytime of night, like, hey, my neighbor's getting on my nerves and stuff like that. So we had to kind of mitigate that kind of stuff. But as far as fixing things, my husband is pretty handy, so he would fix a lot of things himself. We also have a good team of repair people and everything that we could call on. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers my question. So you haven't really had too many nightmare stories of that? And have you had to evict somebody?
Yes, we have, because when we bought that 4-unit property, it had tenants in it as well. So it had tenants in 3 apartments. 1 apartment was empty. That's the apartment we lived in. But when we bought that apartment, we literally bought someone else's problems. And so we had to basically slowly but surely get rid of all of those tenants and then replace them with tenants that we chose. And so, yes, we have had to evict.
So how is that? Because that's one side of the business where it may not be the most glamorous side, and there's families involved, and it could be a lot. Specifically, somebody that's really not say like myself. I'm really conflict adverse, but I understand about this wealth builder. You gotta go get that thing, but it's like, hold up, man. It can get a little testy, specifically if they're not trying to move, and then you pick them out and they know where you stay, and it's a lot. So, I mean, how do you, and then 2, what was the condition of the duplex in it? Was it like a fancy duplex, or was it like, yo, we holding on?
So the duplex, actually, it just needed like minor cosmetic repairs, and we did that stuff ourselves our first go round. But when we bought the 4-unit, it's really, really old, and so we did have to do some like actual renovations and hire people, but we just did it slowly but surely over time, so we didn't spend a lot of money. But yes, the eviction process, especially in DC, is tough because DC is a very tenant friendly state, meaning it's pretty much impossible to put a tenant out. Like it takes an act of Congress to put a tenant out. And so we had to work with the tenants on a very personal level, and, in some cases helping them find another place and kind of like, do you need a ride to go look at these other houses? I mean, but one of the things that I really love about being a landlord, especially a young Black landlord, I have Black tenants, they have Black children. And so aside from the evictions and whatever other, mishaps, just the fact that young Black people are able to see me and my husband be landlords, and they can now, that's in their mind, that's a seed planted in their mind. I can do that too, and so we really take pride in that. But as far as the eviction process is hard too, because this is someone's life. Like shelter is one of the main human needs, right? That's one of our biggest needs for survival. And so to have to put someone out sucks. But at the end of the day, this is business. And what I tell my tenants all the time when we have new tenants, I'm like, look, I'm a young landlord. Like we sacrificed a lot to get here. And, we're not some random, like rich people sitting off on an island somewhere just collecting the check. Like this is personal for us. We worked really hard, and we want you to respect our space. And if you can't, you have to go. Like this is business. So.
Yeah. That's real talk right there. And it's crazy now that you say that. It brings me back to like maybe a podcast I did 30th, like maybe one of my 30, probably like 18th. I had Dominique Broadway. She had a property in DC.
I know her.
Yep, and she had a property in DC, and I believe it was her or somebody else. I think she had a big issue trying to get out of it. I think she had to pay a lot of money back. It was crazy. I was like, I did not know it got down like that in DC. Like I was like, you had to pay somebody to leave. Like it's It's just crazy.
It's
just
crazy.
So, okay. So now we're back, taking us back to your story. Okay. Now you are renting out the house, the big house that you have. You're living you have the duplex and you have the fourplex. So then y'all made another move after that, right?
Yeah, so living in the fourplex, and then we ended up moving to Texas because of my husband's job. So that's one thing. We're like, now we have these rentals. We're like halfway across the the map. But then we bought a condo, and we bought a condo in Baltimore. We bought that cash, and that was also already occupied. We love occupied rentals, I guess, but it had a tenant already in it, which was great because we literally started making money like from day one, and he's a great tenant. So.
And so how were you able to find these deals too as well? Because I know there's a lot of processes to do it, but what was your process in these particular deals? How were you able to find them?
So for the ones in DC, we used real estate agents. Having a good real estate agent is so, so important. If anyone needs a recommendation for the DC area, please let me know. And then for the one in Maryland, it was actually like an off-market deal. It wasn't really up for sale, but someone who knew me was like, "Hey, I know someone who would sell the condo if you wanted it." Like they're ready to be just done with being a landlord. People get tired of being a landlord. They get older, they move. They just didn't want to deal with it anymore. And the numbers worked out, and we bought it.
So how do you become not how do you become, but as a landlord in in Texas, in the Midwest, how, when something goes wrong, do I know y'all have contractors on the staff to look at it, or do y'all just get on a flight and go attend to it?
So we've done a little bit of both. We have a really good team of people. Like we have a plumber, we have a HVAC guy, we have a general repair person. And so in some cases, we can just call them up and they're like, boom, they go fix it. So I don't think it would be easy if we didn't already have a team, right, of people that we trusted. We also have family there and stuff that we can ask to go look at the properties. But we do fly back probably like once every 3 months, like I was telling you, just to kind of get our eyes on it. And if there are things that my husband can fix, he's like, I'll just do it when I'm there rather than having to depend on somebody else. So we're still figuring it out because we've been in Texas, like it'll be a year in like a couple weeks. So it's still kind of new.
Yeah, I got you. That seems legit on that. And are y'all renting now in Texas, or did y'all buy a house as well?
No, we bought a house. Like literally, we bought this house we live in, and we bought the condo in Baltimore at like the same exact time, which was just nuts.
So I know all financing situations are different, and we'll talk to that in a second. But specifically for y'all's, because say once you moved out the duplex, you said you bought the condo cash. Did you just finance this part regular? And how is it? And this might be getting into the second part, but how do you go about financing multiple? Even though y'all both have jobs, all these houses at like once. That seems like a lot of money out there.
Yeah, so fortunately, our 4-unit property, the rent in DC is already super high, but we bought at a really good time because that neighborhood gentrified like immediately after we bought it, and the rents more than doubled, and so we were able to really stack up money like really, really fast, and so that definitely helped. And then we used the money from our jobs. We used basically our good credit and our good job history, because when you go to banks and you're trying to get loans, they want to know how long have you been working, how steady is your income, and looking at your credit and things like that. So we have financed through like banks, getting them mortgages, and then we bought the condo cash. But when it comes to financing rental properties, like there are so many other ways to do it. You can use private lenders. Like you can literally go to a friend or family member and get a loan from them. You can also do like seller financing, owner financing, things like that. So there's options. Got you. So with that being said, actually, nope. Before we go to the second half of the show, we talk about just practical and kind of you can kind of put on your coach cap real quick. I do want to say from a personal perspective, before we get into that, what has been your best and your worst moment in the real estate business so far? So the best, that's tough. I think just like getting feedback from our tenants and them saying that like it's been their best landlord experience and they've been like scarred in the past and we're different and things like I think that's so we take it really personally. We have a very personal approach with our tenants and so I really love that. The worst moment I will say when we bought our 4 unit property, remember I told you we kind of did buy someone else's problem. The police came out to our 4 unit to talk to one of the tenants.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say talk to, and they needed to get into the apartment. So they needed the key and they were asking like, who's the owner of this building? So I came was like, I'm the owner of the building. And they didn't believe me.
Mm.
And me being young and black, it was like, no, you're not. Like, who's really the owner? So I literally had to go get paperwork and my ID, get the deed out of my file cabinet and show it to them. Like, here's my ID, here's my name on the deed. Like, no, I really own this building. And then that still wasn't good enough for them. And I had to literally call my husband home from work. They were like, well, where's your husband? So he had to come
What?
home. Yeah. And that was like a defining moment for me. And this is why I started the Key Resource, because I want to dispel stereotypes that real estate investors or owners of multi-unit buildings have to be old and white. No, you can be young and black. And I want people to see me and know that, yeah, if you see me walking down the street, I could live in an apartment or I could own an apartment building. Like you just do not judge a book by its cover.
So that's a perfect segue into the second part of the second part of the show. Look how God works. Perfect segue to the second half of the show is the Key Resource. So could you tell our audience what the Key Resource is, and what? And I guess this spurred you to start it, but what was the initial moment? If that was the initial moment, you can kind of take it there. But explain to our audience what the Key Resource is.
So yeah, I like your mission for your company because it's very similar to mine, where I'm just looking to empower and equip and inspire people to build wealth, specifically with real estate investment. But I don't want to push real estate investing down anyone's throat because it's not for everybody. I just want people to know it's an option, but I want people to build wealth no matter like how they do it. But how I started it was when we bought our 4 unit building, I posted a picture on Facebook and I just literally said, hey, we just got this 4 unit apartment building. If anyone wants to know how we did it, inbox me. And my inbox was like slammed within hours. And I said, you know what? People have no idea how to do this. There are, young millennials, people who look like me who are out here like, how? And they wanted information so bad. And so it just kind of grew from there.
That's okay. So once it started growing from there, getting the website up, courses and all this, et cetera, like walk us through, okay, now people blowing up my inbox. So where'd I go? So where'd you go from there?
So from there, I just started an email list and I said, I'm never going to do a website. I don't have time for that. At the time, I actually owned an e-commerce business. And I was like, I'm just going to put information out and kind of send emails and give tips and advice. But people wanted more and more. And it was starting to get so time consuming that, as an entrepreneur, I mean, at a certain point, you have to start getting like compensated for your time, right? So I was like, okay, let me put some courses together and things like that and do some coaching. So it really started as an email list, then grew to a website. And then I started doing the courses and things like that.
Got you. And how long have you had it?
So this, it's been 2 years.
Wow. That's crazy. And how long? Cause I know I see you have summits on there. You have some other courses, etc. At what point did you say, okay, I know I need to start getting funding for this, but developing that network and to really putting yourself out there to have a course. Did you take some courses on that? Did you have a mentor, or is that something you just kind of researched on your own and made the wave?
I kind of just made it happen. I mean, I've seen other like infopreneurs and the different platforms they use. And I've learned a lot like doing this whole course creation thing. And I love it because I'm able to reach so many people. And just seeing like my students' results, so many people have purchased their first rentals and they're on their third and fourth rentals at this point just because of the information, in my courses or in my coaching. And it's so powerful that I'm like literally changing lives based on allowing people to learn from my mistakes. That's so huge. Like that's big.
That is huge. And with saying that, I know originally I was going to throw out a couple situations, but if you could, without kind of sharing their names, could you walk us through a couple scenarios with maybe past clients that have had success work with you, or just working in real estate in general, to kind of share with our audience that you don't necessarily always have to have possibly two incomes to get a house, or just share with our audience the different strategies that you have helped people through as far as financing, getting started, how they can get started, and just the different levels.
Yes. So, oh man, there's so many, but one young lady in particular, she lives in New York, and New York is so expensive, and it's like, how am I ever going to afford anything here? I was able to help her find over $70,000 of down payment assistance. So she got grants in excess of $70,000 to where she did not have to come out of pocket for a down payment. She bought a duplex, so she lives in one, rents out the other. The tenant is paying the mortgage, so now she owns a property that is appreciated. She owns an appreciating asset that she did not come out of pocket for, and her tenant is paying her mortgage. That's crazy, right?
And what does she do?
She actually works in the finance world, and she makes like six figures. And this is another thing.
Okay.
People always assume that down payment assistance is for like low income people. That is not the case. She makes six figures and was able to get down payment grants. And so that's one of the things I'm really passionate about, is making sure people know all of the options that are before them. Don't just think that like, oh, I make too much. I mean, you never know. You kind of research and see. So that's one in particular. And then another couple, they have student loans, and they're like, we're never going to be able to afford anything. It's really out of reach. I hooked them up with a really great real estate agent in DC, and they were a part of my 3-month coaching program. They just bought a duplex in DC for less than what our house in Texas cost. And if you know anything about Texas prices, it's cheap.
Man, they give away homes with a pool in Texas, in DC?
Yeah, so they got a duplex in DC for less than, I'm not going to put their numbers out here, but they got a really awesome deal, and they have student loans. And so it's possible. But yeah, if you have any scenarios you think people might want to hear, and I can, walk through, let me know if you have any other.
Yeah, I have a couple. One in particular, I know you mentioned earlier, the college student.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk us through? Was that an ideal? Like, what kind of scenario did a college student get into the real estate game?
Yes. Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that one. Okay, so this young lady, and I know a lot of these I'm talking about are people who are buying multi-unit properties, but I have to share this one. She is in grad school. She's in her first year of grad school. She just bought a 4-unit apartment building in Alabama, and she only put $5,000 down.
Oh,
so
$5,000.
5,000. Like, that's not hard to come up with, right?
Nah. Real talk, you can just charge. I mean, if push came to shove, you could charge $5,000.
I mean, hey, whatever you got, whatever you got to do. So she actually didn't even use any down payment assistance. But the thing is, because she is occupying the property, because she's living in it, she only had to put down 3.5%. And of course, as you can imagine, like, properties in Alabama are probably going to be cheaper than most higher cost of living areas. But that's the power of house hacking, of living in a multi-unit, and you only have to live in it for a year. So it sucks. You sharing space with your tenants, but if you can sacrifice and live there for a year, move a year later, rent that apartment out that you were living in, and go ahead and buy your dream home or whatever the heck you want to do. But she now owns an entire apartment building that she only used $5,000 of her own money for, that already had tenants. She started making money day one, and she's set.
And was she working at the time? Like, how did she even get approved for such a thing?
So she was working because she's in grad school. She's working, and now she's a landlord, and she's single. And that's another thing too. Any people who come across me, I get comments like, "Oh, well, you're married. You have 2 incomes. Like, of course you can do it." Most of my coaching clients are single women. The young lady who bought the duplex in New York, she's single. The one in Alabama, she owns a 4-unit. She's single. I have a coaching client out here in Texas. She just bought a house with a guest house in the back. So it's not really a multi-unit, but she's renting out the guest house on Airbnb. And so she's not paying her mortgage. Her Airbnb tenants are paying her mortgage. So y'all, it's so many ways to get in on it.
So I know there's a couple things, because one, I definitely want to talk about the Airbnb thing, because I know a friend of mine, he just got a house in Atlanta, and he had a whole house for himself, and he's single. He was like, yo, what am I doing with this whole house? And some things came up, and for one, he said, all right, I'm gonna Airbnb this one room. And he had another room, Airbnb his 2 rooms, and now it's paying his mortgage. But I want to get into that specifically in a second. But I have 2 more scenarios I want to throw at you. Another scenario is somebody that is, and I know you work with, do all the people that buy real estate, do they automatically come with like good to perfect credit? Like, what kind of credit do people need to have in order to get into the game? Yeah, so that's the first question I wanted to ask, as far as, because I know people are listening is like, okay, cool. I make pretty good money, but I have student loans, and what if my credit's average? Like, what do you usually look for as far as terms of credit?
So you're definitely going to need good credit. If you do not have the best credit,
what's good credit like? As far as score wise, range.
That's hard for me to say, because when you are getting approved for a loan, they're going to look at your debt to income ratio as it relates to your credit, as it relates to your income. And I don't want to throw a number out, and that is different from what someone would hear from a bank. So I would say you need good credit, and you should call it. I kind of get iffy like putting out numbers, because I don't want to. Yeah, but what
kind of properties include good credit?
What do you mean?
That's something you can look online, but I'm like, because I know when people say, okay, good credit, I know I'm at all right, 700, or at least like, okay, I'm
that's
not
good.
Yeah, I'm not bringing in more, but specifically, I guess to not dwell on the credit piece, is just you need to, if you having questions about your credit, you need to talk to a financial advisor and kind of work through that before, right?
Yes, but you can also call a bank and try to get an idea of what you could be pre-approved for. Okay, here's the thing. Say your credit is good, but it's not like 830 or anything like that.
830 is
I know. I just made that up. But like, say, I mean, the thing
you
is,
just made people in the podcast just stop the car. They're like, hold up, 830 get a duplex. Okay, I'm just playing. That's why we don't say numbers, right?
That's so funny. No, you don't need to have an 830, but your interest rate will be determined based on your credit. So I'm not saying you can't get a loan. It might be more expensive if your credit is lower. So that's all I'm saying. But don't disqualify yourself. Talk to a bank and see what they say. But say you don't have stellar credit, say you're self-employed. This is huge. If you are self-employed, it's very hard, no matter what your credit score is, to convince a bank to give you a loan. They want to see at least 2 years of steady income. It doesn't have to be like crazy, like $1 million a year income, but it needs to be steady. It needs to be consistent. And if you don't have that, you could look into seller financing. That's a whole other thing, but that's an option for people who may not be able to get a bank loan.
Mm-hmm. And if you could, I know that's a whole nother thing, but a lot of my listeners that listen to this podcast are entrepreneurs. So I know, if you could just share with our audience, you don't have to share everything. Cause I mean, if you want all the nitty gritty details, you need to go to thekeyresources.com and book a session. But so this is high level, but for our entrepreneurs out there, because that's one question I definitely wanted to ask as an entrepreneur myself, that say, okay, you had your corporate background. Cause a lot of times it's crazy. Right when I left entrepreneurship, I started to find out so much stuff. I was like, yo, if I could just still say cause I mean, my incomes might be the same. However, it's like the bank don't care about all that. Like I had to jump through so many hoops just to get a car loan. I was like, my credit's good. Like what happened? Like, but they're like, I need 2 years. So luckily, shout out to Capital One. They held the boy down, but it's like, so talk to us about that seller financing for those that are entrepreneurs. You make a decent income, but the bank is really hounding you on these tax returns. Tax returns get funny when you're an entrepreneur, because if you write off a lot of stuff, then it looks like last year I wrote off, like I was just writing off stuff, and I was like, bro, if I took this to the bank gonna look at me like, yo,
exactly.
Why you even in an apartment? So talk to us about that.
Because as an entrepreneur, I know you want to write everything off, but if you're trying to buy a house, that might not be the best thing to do. So definitely talk to a financial advisor. But seller financing basically is, if you see a house for sale, usually if you see it that it's for sale by owner, those are typically the better ones that would be a candidate for this. But The concept of seller financing is that instead of going through a bank to get a mortgage, the seller of the property is going to act as the bank. And you will pay the seller a down payment. You will pay the seller a monthly payment over a set amount of time. And so basically, instead of going through a bank, you're not getting a loan from the bank. You're basically paying the seller a down payment and paying them. And most sellers who are okay with doing this are like, they're of the investor mindset where, you know what, yeah, I'll go ahead and make some money every month rather than getting all of my money up front, because they're probably going to make more money over time doing that. It just depends on where they're at and if they're interested in kind of that delayed gratification.
So I guess what is truly the benefit? Because I'm thinking on mine, like, I mean, not mine, from their perspective. What's the benefit for them? They make a couple more dollars, but is there a true benefit for them?
Yeah, when they do seller financing, they can typically they can make more money over time. They can make the price higher, right? So it's almost like if you're seller financing, it's kind of like having a tenant, but then not, because you don't have any responsibility to the property. So if they're the kind of person who kind of wants that monthly cash flow, then it's a good fit for them. So yeah, people do it all the time.
So it's kind of like subletting, but is really a house. But then after they pay you off, but the bank, how is the bank not involved in that piece? Cause like who they create their own down payment price. They do all that on their own.
It's all negotiable. That's the great thing about seller financing, is that it is really up to you and the seller. The one thing is the interest rate is probably going to be higher than what the bank would have charged you. But if you can't get a loan because you're self-employed, it don't matter. You don't have any other options. So that's the beauty of it, is that it's flexible, but the downfall is it's probably going to cost you a little bit more every month. And then the cool thing is too, well, I don't know if it's cool for the buyer, but just like when you get a mortgage through a bank, if you don't pay, they're going to take your property back. Same thing with this seller. Like if you don't pay him, he's going to take the property back. Like you own the property, right? You own it. You're paying on, just like if you were to own it through a bank, like, you know, you own it until you don't pay, and then he or she could take the asset back, if that makes any sense. So they do have that kind of comfort. Like, okay, I'm making this money every month. They're paying me every month, but if they stop paying, then I can seize the asset.
Got you.
Just like a bank could. Same thing.
Makes sense. And a question I wanted to ask, as far as with real estate agents, like how do you go about seeing which are the best real estate agents in your area or trusting? Is there like something, or is there a best practices for selecting real estate agents? And can real estate agents advise you on what properties, or they only cover properties that are seller owned, or, I mean, not seller owned, but just that they're showing, or how does that kind of work?
Oh, no, your real estate agent can show you any property. They can send you properties. You can say, hey, I drove by a house today and I want to see that one. It had a sign out there. So it's really open in that way. But to select a real estate agent, you should first ask friends, family, coworkers for recommendations. You can go online. If you go to like Redfin, that's a home listing site that has like different houses for sale. You'll see on the side they have agents. I also have like an amazing network of agents, because I'm a licensed real estate agent in DC. I don't represent buyers and stuff. Like, I'm not going to go show y'all no houses, but if you need recommendations, I have an amazing network and I can connect you with people. So yeah, those are some different kind of ways to find. But I would say when it comes to selecting your real estate agent and your bank that you're going to work with, or whoever you work with in the real estate realm, make sure you're selecting somebody who is not going to pressure you to go outside of your goals and outside of your financial comfort zone. Like, you don't want anyone who's pushing you to do things that you know would put you in a tight position. That's why it's so important to have a good agent.
And you keep mentioning this word goals. And I think you mentioned it earlier in the podcast when you first start talking with clients. You said, okay, let's talk about your goals first. Could you walk us through when you say that, like, what are you really asking? Because I mean, some may say, okay, my goal is to become a millionaire. My goal is this. Like, what is a better, when you say goals, as far as from a real estate perspective or wealth building, what are you really asking?
So here are two examples of goals. One could be, I want to eliminate my living expenses. So I want to buy a multi-unit property so I can live in one, rent out the other, and have my tenant pay my mortgage off, right? That's a goal. Another goal is I want to buy a rental property so I can make at least $1,500 in rental income per month. That's a goal. And once you set that goal, you know you want to make an X amount of dollars per month. Then you start looking at properties in that price range, right? So.
Okay, that makes sense. And also too, you hit on it earlier, but for the people that do have student loans, is that typically a huge barrier, or do a lot of clients you work with have student loans, or they don't?
No, it's actually not a barrier, and it really depends on like a myriad of different like financial situations. But I do this thing in my Facebook group called True Story Tuesdays, and basically I interview people who have taken my courses and then who have went on to buy rental property. And this couple that I talked to last night, one of the biggest things they wanted to get across to people is that you can do this with student loans. Like, here we are, we have a crazy amount of student loans and we just bought a property. And so, yes, you can do it. And there is I'm about to share a whole nother little nugget with y'all too. There's a program, if any of you are listening and y'all are in Maryland, there's a program that pays off your student loans if you buy a house in Maryland. And it's called the Maryland Smart Buy Program. There are some different stipulations to it. It has to really be a perfect fit for it to make sense for each person, but it's definitely something to look into.
And where do people see? Because I know we got people listening from all over the country and obviously internationally as well. But for the people that are in the U.S., what would be some good starting points? And this is a broad question because I know it's a lot of specific things. But you keep talking about down payment assistance and assistance for that. And when I thought about it, originally we think about real estate. I'm like, hold up. People are assisting or giving money to people to buy houses. So where do you even find, or where do you begin to find such information about finding other resources that can help you buy a house? You usually start this at your banker, start with real estate agents, or outside of course going to the keyresource.com, right? Or .co?
No, .info. So the keyresource.info, I do have some info on my site about that, but you can ask your real estate agent. You can also ask your bank if they have any incentives or kind of programs they offer. And there's so many programs out there, but basically, some of them are like city-based grants. Like your city might have a pot of money that every year they dedicate to giving to people, like to ease the burden of the down payment. Or some programs are like for teachers or firefighters or policemen or like veterans, right? So there's so many different like pots of money for those things.
Okay. That sounds good. I'm excited. All right. I know we talked about earlier, because as we start to begin to close, I do want to talk about you and your husband are partners in this. And how is that has that helped your relationship? How has that been, kind of having your partner in crime work with you, work with you, on building wealth, and how does that set the foundation for your future, just for your future family?
Yeah, so we love it. Like, we eat, breathe, and sleep real estate. And we're fortunate enough that when we played that game and had that aha moment, that we both were on board. And I do know some people will come to me and will say, oh, my spouse isn't on board, but I want to do this. And I feel sorry for them because we did not have that experience. Like, we both were like, yes, we're in it. But as you can see from my story earlier, he was like, all right, let's sacrifice. And I'm like, I don't want to. Like, so when it comes to that, he had to like pull me along. And even now to this day, sometimes he's like, let's go big and like, let's do this real big, crazy thing and like sacrifice real hard. And I'm like, I don't want to do that again. Like, so it's like, we have different personalities, but we love this and we're in it. We're addicted. And we love ownership. We love like everything that comes with it.
Yeah. That sounds perfect. And when you say that, and when you look about, okay, y'all have only been in the game, how many years? 4 or 5 years?
4. We've done a lot in 4 years. It's crazy.
So I know this is just a very, very high level question, but how far do you think y'all would like to take it? I mean, and I guess, yeah, I'll start there.
So we definitely have a cash flow goal in mind. We know how much money per month in rental income we want to make, and then we have just an asset goal in mind. So that's why I say goals are so important. I'm not going to share numbers, but we do know how much money we want to make per month until we can say, you know what, from this point on, anything we buy is just for fun. Like right now, we're buying on a mission, but like when we get to that goal, it's gonna be like if we buy anything else, it's just because we felt like it, you know. And so that's what we're doing. But I definitely I'm still gonna keep up with the key resource. I love empowering and helping people and things like that. So my husband, we do real estate together, but he's not like on social media. He doesn't do the kind of speaking piece and things like that. But when I started the key resource, he's like my biggest fan, and he's my number one supporter. So y'all may not see him, but he's in the background. If y'all see me on a webinar or anything, he's not on the screen, but he's probably like handing me some wine or coffee or something in the background, like holding up some kind of cue card. So, but yeah, we definitely we love it.
Man, that's crazy. And did you ever think like 4 or 5, not say 7 years ago, if you would have told yourself like when you were in master's school, you in your master's program, your master's degree, would you ever thought that you would be in like real estate and having like multiple streams of income, buying houses and doing stuff like this?
Never. No.
Man, that's great. And our last question before we go to our rapid fire round. How do you balance? Because I know you mentioned all this stuff that you've been able to do, and you still bring it home. Y'all both still have your jobs, which is phenomenal. So how do y'all like balance that? How does that work? Because I know people out there are like, all right, what in 4 years, multiple rental properties, all these changes. But hey, no, we still working for the government. So share what you can share without getting yourself fired.
No, it's cool. I work from home.
Okay.
So I work from home all day. My husband doesn't, but that gives me a lot of flexibility. But we do have a plan. You know, we're not going to work for the government forever, but it's helped us because, as you know, once you get rid of that steady paycheck, it's really hard to get financing. So, you know, we have some things in the works, but it's not going to be this crazy forever.
Nah, I feel you. That's something that, I mean, I wouldn't take anything back because luckily you just need a couple years to get, and you got to sacrifice a couple years, especially when you're doing your own thing. But, I would have, prepared a little bit differently. So, before we go to the culture change round, I definitely want to allow you to get on your footstool, not your footstool, but, what do you call it when people
soapbox?
Yeah, your soapbox real quick for those that, for 3 different scenarios before we go. The first scenario is advice that you would give to a college student, just in general to kind of prepare themselves, or certain things that you wish you would have been aware of in college, just to kind of start preparing yourself for the real estate game. Because I know I have a lot of college listeners as well. And I definitely, you knowing what you know now, you probably would have been like, yo, in college, I would have did X, Y, and Z. Also for those that are just starting their career. And then on the last piece, those that are in mid-career and that are around them, their friends aren't in real estate. They want to get into real estate. Their finances are in decent position, but right now their mindset is like, it's kind of overwhelming, or they don't believe they can do it.
Okay, so for the college student, save your money. I saved no money in college. I had a full ride. I had a job. I had parents who sent me an allowance every month. I graduated with nothing to show for it.
Sent you an allowance every month?
Yeah, every month, and pay my credit card bills. It was crazy. Like I had so much money, and I had an internship every summer. I mean, I know that sounds irresponsible, but no one had ever told me, hey, save your money. Hey, your credit score is important. Like no one told me those things. Save your money. And another thing too, I think is really cool that I wish more parents would do. If your child ever moves off campus, wouldn't it be really cool if instead of paying, I don't know, $1,000, $1,200 a month for them to live in an apartment somewhere off campus, buy a house. They can live in it. You can rent it out when they leave. You know, you're always going to have student tenants, you know? That's that generational wealth thing, right? So That's for the college student. For the person who's entry level in their career, definitely start thinking about how you can get some down payment assistance grants. While your income is at that entry level income, you may qualify for more since your income is lower. You do not have to be low income to get grants, but you may be able to qualify for more. And then for the person who's mid career and is just like, I'm ready but overwhelmed, call me. Call me. Like, let's get over the overwhelm.
I love that. and it gets a second thing too. A lot of people say, for instance, say if they're a teacher, they make 40, 45. I mean, that's the only number I thought. Say for people that are around, say people that are not in the six figures, right? And they are mid-career. They chose a profession that, it's just not in that range. They're check to check. Not check to check, but you know what I mean. I guess those are people that say, okay, if you're having any kind of, they need to talk to you, because there's help out there.
Yes. Yeah, we can talk through it, strategize. I mean, there's, like I said, so many ways to get in. So. Got you.
So, our last question before the rapid fire round, our official last question for the round. I feel like I said that a thousand times, but a lot of stuff keeps popping in my head. Is there any, outside of course the documents and the stuff that you're about to share that's on key resources online, is there any other foundational books or courses that people need to just peruse through as far as just getting a foundation in real estate game, or the biggest thing is just starting?
Definitely start. I think everyone probably mentions Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I feel so cliche, but I'm just going to throw it out there. But just get started.
Say less. So, rapid fire round. I got 5 rapid fire questions. Hopefully I can get rapid fire answers. You ready to go?
Yes.
What's the best piece of advice that you have never received?
I guess I never received "You are worthy of wealth" until I told myself.
Boom. If you could add one habit and take away one habit, what would they be?
I would start my morning meditating and reading. If I could take away one habit, I would take away like scrolling on Instagram.
What is your favorite book or movie and why?
So favorite book, The Invisible Man, and favorite movie, I don't even know. The Notebook, Friday. I got all kinds of favorite movies.
Friday. I love it.
Too extreme.
What's your biggest fear?
Biggest fear is I guess living with regret.
That's real. And the last question of the culture change round is, if you were the president of the United States, what is the first thing you would do?
I would never want to be president of the United States.
But if you were, what is the first thing you would do?
I undo all the crazy stuff Trump has done.
Yep, that's it on that. So, before we always close, everybody that comes on this show, on this podcast, I call a culture change agent in their own right. They're doing stuff, uplifting the culture, whether it be real estate, whether it be wealth, whether it be stocks, whatever. And the big thing we always talk about in general is not only wealth, but also just becoming better people and becoming more loving people and just sharing whatever we feel is our call, our gift to the world, sharing that. So this last question is, if you could change one thing about society, most specifically our African-American culture, what would it be and why?
I would change our mindset from being consumers to being owners. Like, let's stop standing in line for Jordans and let's start like standing in line to get information, to buy up tax deed properties. Like, let's change our mentality.
I love that. So, I think that pretty much wrapped us up. However, you said something at the end that I would be remiss if I didn't circle back and ask, can you quickly go through from your experiences the different types? You said tax deed properties. I just want to kind of give people a foray to like what is actually out there.
Oh, yes, real quick. So, wholesaling, that is a type of real estate investing that requires no money and no credit at all. No matter what your credit score is, because you do not need either one of those things to do it. So, that's a great way to get started if you
What
do
is
not have
that?
any wholesaling. Okay, so I'm not a wholesaling expert, but I do have a course that I did with 5 other investors, and one of them is a wholesaling expert. But you're basically finding a person that is extremely desperate to sell, someone who's like in dire straits and needs to sell their property, and who will basically sell it to you at a discount. But then instead of really buying it with your own money, you find someone else who really wants to buy it, like me, who has money, who wants to invest. And you say, hey, I got this person who wants to sell their property for like $10,000. And I'm like, hey, I've been looking for a property for $10,000. So basically, you're kind of like a middleman. You find a seller who's really, really pressed to sell. You find a buyer, you hook them up, and you get paid for that. And you name your own fee. And so there's a whole
Ah,
art to it. You do not need credit. You don't need money because you're really not spending any money. You're spending a lot of time because you're building relationships and you're finding buyers and sellers. That's wholesaling. The other thing is buying tax liens. That's basically buying someone's debt and making interest off of it. If someone has not paid their taxes on their property, the city puts a lien on it. You can basically pay the balance of that lien, and then it works different in different places, but that's a way to make money on someone else's debt, basically. Then tax deeds is you're buying a property that has delinquent taxes. You're basically paying the balance of that delinquent tax bill to get the property. So tax liens, tax deeds. So wholesaling, tax liens, tax deeds, flipping. Y'all all know from HGTV, buy a property that's real jacked up, slap some paint on it, some new cabinets, whatever, flip it and make a profit. And then there's buy and hold, which is what I do, buy properties, hold them and rent them out. There's house hacking, living in one unit, renting out the other. And there's also investing in a group, like a realty fund. So putting your money in a pot with other people, buying a property and getting a payout based on whatever terms y'all agree on. So those are some different ways, like real quick.
okay, that's great. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask, why don't you flip homes if you care to ask, if you care to answer?
So I haven't come across the right opportunity. It's a lot of work, but I think flipping is great. The thing about flipping is when you make a large amount of money in a short amount of time. You can make $40,000 in a few months, but that's cool. But what you do with that 40,000 makes all the difference. Your money is only as good as what you do with it. So for me, with buy and hold, I get steady rental income over time, and I also keep the asset. I own it. I don't sell it. It keeps appreciating, and I can make money every month. I can sell it later. I can pull equity out. Like, there's so many options, and that's why I like buy and hold. But there's room for everybody and everyone's preferences.
Cool. Man, this has been a action and jam packed. Like, this has been one of the most seriously, because my podcast usually are long, and this has only been like an hour 10, hour 15. And then I feel like you've given so much information. I'm so thankful for your time. So for our audience, where can we find out more information about you, what you do? So can you share with us all your online information?
Yeah, so if you guys follow me on Instagram, you basically can see everything in the link in my bio. So on Instagram, it's at The Key Resource. Follow me, send me a DM if y'all have any questions. I would love to connect with you guys. And yeah, I'm thankful for the opportunity.
No doubt. So everybody, the information for Instagram, website, all that good stuff will be in the show notes. So from the bottom of my heart and Minority Trailblazer Nation's heart, like I said, once again, thank you for your time. And Minority Trailblazer Nation, I need you to do 2 things and 2 things only. You already know. 1, make sure you subscribe, leave a review. And 2, make sure you continue to change the freaking culture. Good night.